And we were actually huge nerds. We were on the high school debate team together. We did a duo interpretation that involved like fake fainting and all kinds of stupid stuff. Anyway, Meredith and I have known each other a long time. The reason she's speaking is not because she was on the debate team with me in high school or that we're nerds, though that helps. She teaches Lego robotics to kids between the ages of 3rd grade and 6th grade at the Phelps Center for Gifted Learning here in school. She's been there for 3 years. Meredith went to MU, where she has a degree in education and a master's degree in instruction and curriculum. She's currently, as if she isn't busy enough, working on her 2nd master's degree in education administration at MSU here in town. This summer she's going to be teaching her Lego robotics class over at Drury to kids who are there for their exploration summer Scape thing that they do. And she actually does run marathons, for real. She runs marathons and triathlons. I know, you could just be faking it, Meredith. What are you doing? All right, so here's Meredith Burstin, everybody.
Yeah, and here I've been running like a sucker. All right, so when you mention R2-D2, most people are going to think of this. But at Phelps Center for Gifted Education, R2-D2 stands for Research, Robotics, Design, and Discovery. We started the R2-D2 Robotics Club in 2011 for our middle school students because so many of them are interested in engineering and technology and figuring out how stuff works. In 2012, we entered our very first competition, which was Best Robotics. We built a robot named Yui, which represented exploration, elevation, and expertise. Of the 16 teams competing, we were the only middle school team. Everybody else was from high school. The theme for Best Robotics 2012 was Warp 20. We were to design and build a robot that could actually climb a simulated space elevator. This was the first time in the competition's 20-year history that they actually had a playing field that was vertical rather than horizontal, so we definitely had a learning curve on that one. The first step was actually understanding the task. At the bottom of the space elevator was a variety of objects of different sizes and point values. You had 3 minutes to get as many of those items to the top of the elevator. It was all about strategy. You could go for the easier objects that were lower point values, or you could decide to go high risk, high reward. We also received this lovely list of materials, this box of electronics, and we were basically told, okay, go make that work. So it was a little bit overwhelming for us. I will admit there are some things in that box that even now I don't know what they are and I couldn't tell you what they actually do. So we started by brainstorming. Our kids knew that we needed to have some sort of robotic arm. We knew it was going to need fingers because it was going to need to be able to grab and lift objects, but we also knew that there was going to be a weight issue. If we made the arm too heavy, the robot wouldn't be able to climb up the space elevator, so we had to find a balance between those two. Our kids worked in groups in order to come up with designs for the robot, and as you can see, we had a lot of different ideas. Some groups had really specific ideas about how they wanted this robot to come together, but some of them were kind of having a hard time wrapping their mind about how this task was going to work. Our gifted kids do not like gray areas. That's kind of uncomfortable territory for them, and this whole challenge was pretty much a gray area. And unfortunately, to add to that challenge, we only had 6 weeks from start to finish. So we knew that we were going to have to really pull together as a team if we were going to make this thing happen. So once we agreed on a design, we actually asked the students to go ahead and take cardboard and build a model of their robot. We thought it was really important for them to see their design in 3 dimensions, but we also needed them to start realizing that of all of these different elements that they planned, they're actually going to have to come together into one working unit. A lot of our kids had never worked with tools before, so that was definitely a learning experience for them. They also realized that cardboard does not behave the same way as wood and PVC pipe and metal, so our design ended up undergoing a lot of changes. 2 weeks before the competition, we got to actually go visit the game site. We got to meet with the other teams and we got to test out what we had so far. And the high school students were definitely interested in what those little middle schoolers were up to. Unfortunately for us, we figured out very quickly that we had some pretty major design flaws that we needed to address. Basically, the robot was just too heavy. Along with that, we had to create a marketing campaign for our robot. So our students created a Prezi, a display, a website, and they actually had to stand up in front of a panel of judges and talk about the robot. And to actually see them do it, I mean, it was a really proud moment for us. So we continued with the robotic arm. We knew we had to make this thing work. Because our robot had to actually move in 3 dimensions, we knew that the fingers, the wrist, and the elbow all had to be connected and wired properly, but we also had to make sure that everything was balanced out on the arm, because if the arm was too heavy, that robot was not going to go anywhere. The night before competition was a little intense. We had students practicing controlling the robot. The arm would work, the climbing mechanism would work, but we couldn't always get them to work together. So it was a little bit of a stressful evening for us, I'm not gonna lie. The next morning when we arrived at Best, it was overwhelming. We were surrounded by teams that were much larger and much more experienced than us, but the organizers did a really great job of making our kids feel comfortable. There was music, there was cheering, there were signs. Some teams even actually brought their own mascots, which was really interesting. So we were able to kind of get over the stress of the night before. It was a little strange for our middle schoolers, though, to look over to their right and realize that their competitors had beards. So the age difference kind of came out there a little bit, but we fought really hard during the preliminary rounds, and we actually ended up advancing to the quarterfinals. Woo! Yeah! So once we learned that, we had 1 hour to prepare, and that was when it was all hands on deck. We had teachers, we had students, we had some parents. Everybody was working every single minute of that hour in order to make sure that we were ready for the next level of competition. So we made it to quarterfinals, and the audience was unbelievably supportive. There were teams that had already been eliminated, and they would come over and they would ask our robot's name, and they would start cheering for us as if it was their own robot. Unfortunately, this is where our competition ended, but we ended up placing 8th overall, and we were very proud of that. We also received the Spirit and Sportsmanship Award because our kids were just so darn cute. So, I mean, it was obvious our robot was not winning any awards, but our kids cheered, they made friends with other teams, we may have thrown down a dance move or 2 as needed, and so we definitely made an impact, but really the biggest impact was on the kids. The growth that we saw in them from beginning to end was just unbelievable, and this team never gave up. They came through, and they were a team in every sense of the word. So of every idea that we explored, that was undoubtedly the most valuable. Thank you very much.